This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What up, everybody? It is the Motor City Sports Rant, and we're back after a week off. John had to take the kids on vacation because I made fun of him for, his parenting skills. So he had to go to the water park and play around with his kids. How did that go?
It was awesome. Going up to Frankenmuth was something that was very relaxing. And I was telling Adam last week on the Doc and Jock podcast, I'm not really a water guy. So for me, spending a day on a boat or spending a day at a water park is not something that's ideal for me. But going with the kids and the missus, I had such a good time. Went down my very first water slide. And needless to say, I was going up and down the slides more than the kids were. So I had fun, and it made me really think, man, if I work really hard in the next 5 years, maybe, just maybe, I'll get myself a pool in the backyard at the crib and have some people over, because it's not really for me. I'm a guy that enjoys other people's company. I enjoy making people happy, and I'd bust my ass if I could get a pool and maybe make people happy and invite them over, take a dive in the pool. It was awesome to spend time with the family. Needless to say, you were doing other type things, taking care of yourself. I hear that you got your wisdom teeth pulled out.
I had a big week last week, just a regular normal work week. But yeah, Thursday, 420. Did not celebrate like most other people, but
I got a funny story. Remind me to tell you.
But I did. I went out and got my wisdom teeth, my two top wisdom teeth out. So I got the gas, and I was high at that point. It was my first teeth pulled out, and I was pretty okay going into it. I was a little nervous, but I worked in the morning. Right before I left, I was talking with one of the guys I work with. And he's like, oh, yeah, they give you the gas, and it's weird because all you hear is a crack and then just a bunch of pulling. And I'm like, crack. That makes me nervous. So needless to say, went in there, and after I got the gas all shot up, got the shots, I didn't feel anything. Got them pulled out and out of commission for pretty much the rest of that day, and just recovered the rest of the week. I know, Macho Man Randy Savage. And then, finally things looking up. Sunday, we're heading out with the family, going to celebrate my mother-in-law's 60th birthday. And lo and behold, a little white-haired lady comes and hits us in an intersection.
So, rear-ended or on the passenger side?
No, it was a four-way stop. And there was even a cop at the intersection. So we were stopped. The cop went. It was our turn to go. We start going. We get to pretty much the middle of the intersection, and the lady starts going. There really isn't a whole lot I can do. I try and brake, and I swerve out of the way, but she hit us right in the passenger side around the wheel area. So, no airbags went off. I mean, it was more scary than anything because, we got a 2.5-month-old baby. So I know it freaked out my wife, but everything turned out fine. Everything's okay. Everybody's okay. And spent a good portion of the day trying to figure out fixing my wife's car.
And I was thinking the same thing one day where, I'm a guy that's really busy, and I try to get to the office within reason, maybe 10, 15 minutes ahead of a podcast recording or ahead of my first visit for the day. And needless to say, I'm always driving down Mound Road, and I see these people like going 35 miles an hour, and Mound is like 50. So right away, my first instinct is it's either a foreigner or a really old person. And needless to say, at some point down Mound around 18 to 17 mile road, it kind of, you get an extra lane. And I always end up invariably going around the person and looking, and 9 times out of 10, it's an old person. And I'd say to myself, really? At that point in time, I really do believe, and I'm not really a guy that thinks that the government should be involved too much, but by the age of 66, 67, you shouldn't be driving anymore. Just get a family member to drive you around.
I don't think it doesn't necessarily need to be that they're not driving, but I think at some point there does need to be like almost like a retesting, or take like a road test once you get to a certain age, and you have to retake that every couple of years, because this lady, she clearly shouldn't be driving. I mean, she can't. It looks like she can get around at least a little bit, but like she was just completely out of it. It wasn't like a huge crash. We were maybe going 10, 15 miles an hour, but it was enough for like her leg airbags didn't go off. Her like the main airbags didn't go off, but like she didn't know how to. She was like, I don't know how to open up my door. And I was like, well, did you try opening your door? And the door opened. She's like, oh, can you help me move the car? I'm like, well, have you tried driving? And she drove it. And it's like, wow, it's crazy. And
Did you follow the simple rule of if it steers, it clears? Did you guys stay in the intersection while the cop kind of came over and addressed?
At first it stayed in the intersection, but like we were literally like right in the middle of the intersection. I looked at the car and I moved it. It was able to move. We were able to get it back to, we weren't too far away from the house. We were able to drive back. And then today we drove it to the dealership, which is maybe half a mile away. So
you're not in favor of banning old people from driving, like the doc?
I'm in favor of giving a road test to like once they hit like 70 years old. Cause I mean, my dad, he's almost, I think he's going to be 65 this year. So I know him and he's a competent driver. But I know that there's other people, like once they hit 70, 75, that's when you need to really start worrying about it. And they should be like, I'd say every 2 years. Because I know I was talking with somebody else who, like their 80-year-old, dad, that he got his license renewed and he wouldn't have to get it renewed for like another 7 years. And once you get that age, it's their mind. I mean, it's just stuff is deteriorating. It's just what happens in the human body. I'm not in favor of banning them completely, but you need to give them some sort of test.
I'm telling you something, man. I'm telling you, it ain't over.
If you're listening to this podcast, whoever hit Jason, the person advising him is telling him to seek counsel. So the first thing that I thought to myself when you text me, I got into an accident was, hey, is everybody okay? Obviously, the things that are important first, make sure the missus and the child are okay. Then the next thing I asked was, is your neck hurting? And you're such a nice guy. You're like,
yeah, you texted me. You like, is your neck hurting with the crying face? I'm like, are you like joking that I just got into an accident?
No, because the thing that I was thinking was, oh, Jason needs to call 1-855-WINS or call Mike or call Lee or, as we are bombarded with so many legal advertisements for injuries, I said to myself, well, hey, did you by chance get whiplash? Is your back in severe pain? Do you need a week off? Because, hey, insurance is there for you to collect if you need it. And so I was wondering if your, injuries sustained from this accident are really causing a lot of stress for maybe not allowing you to work or podcast or live the lifestyle that you're accustomed to at home.
Well, clearly I made it to the podcast, and I'm not going to be shady like that. I'm not slick like that. So I'm going to keep moving on, and I just don't want to pay for this. It sucks.
So you're saying that you're okay, and for the most part, you're not going to sue this old lady?
No. I mean, she wouldn't have to pay it herself. It would be her insurance anyways. But no, I'm not going to sue. I wouldn't want to. I don't want to deal with the hassle.
You want to know how pathetic my life is?
I get the jollies.
Pathetic, but
I get the jollies out of hoping that you sue somebody.
it would be a completely other thing if anything would have happened to my wife or to my child. Remarkably, I was able to keep calm as much as I did. But if something would have happened to them, it would have been a much different situation.
Of course, and that's why we can joke now a couple days later about it. So you're not suing. You're a nice guy. You're not for banning old people. No fun from you, but I understand completely. You made sure that everybody's okay and that everybody is walking away. So it seemed like she hit you maybe at like 5 miles an hour just through, or maybe 10,
probably
15?
At least like 10, 15. I want to say we were both, because we were going through the intersection. I think we were at least getting up to 15, 20 miles an hour, and then she started going. So I'd have to say around 10, 15.
Okay, so everybody's okay. Thank goodness. You made it to the podcast.
No airbags went off. I was thankful for that, and my wife is in the backseat with the kids, so she wouldn't have been affected. But I knew it was kind of in my head. I'm like, oh my god, the airbag's gonna go off, and I'm just gonna get just blasted in the face.
So what car did you get when you took the car in for a rental? What are you gonna be driving around?
Oh, we haven't gotten a rental yet. We took it into the dealership, and they were like, oh, we don't have a rental yet. So whenever a rental comes, it's my wife is gonna be the one who drives that.
Gotcha, Jason. I understand. I'm glad that everybody's okay, and that's the most important. All kidding aside, you're not going to sue anybody. That's fine. So you're going to keep podcasting, keep working at the radio station. You're not going to take it easy street here.
Got to make that money.
See, for me, I might be different. The day after, I might be walking with a cane Just saying.
I can
Just
totally see you. You're gonna be. I wouldn't be surprised if you had one of those neck braces at your house. Just somebody taps you. Next day, you're gonna have a neck brace on, and then you're probably gonna sue somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if you sue me at some point.
I'm not suing you, Jason. Come on now. You're one of the fine contributors of this network. I'm not suing you. I'm not going to do anything like that. Not with you. She hit you. And so first and foremost, I'd be traumatized. That'd be the first word that come out of my mouth is, oh my God, the trauma. But, they investigate nowadays too. So, all the daily activities that I go to, they'd be like, oh, okay, you're one of those guys that just, claims injury, then's going to the gym 4 to 5 days. And I'd be one of the guys that gets the camera shoved in his face with a microphone. Excuse me, you claim disability, you claim this lawsuit, but here you are at the gym.
No, you're going to be on Problem Solvers.
From, what do you call it? The Fox 2 Hall of Shame.
For show.
You know who we hope is not in the Hall of Shame this week? Bob Quinn and the Detroit Lions. It's draft week, baby. You excited?
I am excited. We get to play with our new toys this week.
That's right. Everyone's excited. It's Thursday. The NFL draft is upon us. Lions are drafting 21st. Lots to get to, but for the most part, I think the vibe is a little bit more confident around town. When people talk about the draft and they talk about the Detroit Lions, I get a sense that people, based upon Bob Quinn's first-year drafting and the moves that he's made in this offseason, a lot of people are looking at Bob Quinn going, you know what? You got this. Make your move, and we'll evaluate. And most people, I think, are favoring Bob Quinn and looking at him in a positive light.
I think they're looking at this draft favorably because I don't think there's really it's going to be hard for him to go wrong with whatever pick he needs, because we need a starter on a lot of places. I mean, he could go offensive lineman again, and it probably wouldn't be a bad situation. I mean, that's not where I want to go. I think really it's pretty clear where he's going to go. It should be on the defensive side because that's where we need the help. And I would say he probably sticks on with a linebacker. You have Ziggy Ansah on the defensive line, and you could use some help there. But that's what we didn't have Levy for so long, and we just seem to be missing something for the last 2 years. So I think you need to go out, get a dynamic linebacker, and I think you're going to see one of those guys, whoever's one of the top linebackers there, whether it's Hassan Reddick or the Karis McKinley, even TJ Watt, who I think he's moved up draft boards recently. Even if it's not linebacker, I think there's only a couple positions, I think quarterback, tight end, that we would look at this pick and be like, what the hell are you doing?
So on our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast, I threw out there, who would you want to draft? Which player would make you happy and which player would make you upset? And by and large, the majority of the responses that said I would hate it would be if they drafted a tight end. Some people said we'd be upset if they drafted a running back. Some people said, hey, if they draft Jabril Peppers, that'd be a big disaster. And so I think that you're right. Many people are looking for the Lions to draft on the defense. But does any part of you at all think that Bob Quinn could be throwing, smoke screens out there for everybody and might actually take a tight end in the first round? Because that would be the only pick. And I know we haven't looked that in-depthly at all these players. We don't know, the intricacies, and that's why we're not in management. We don't know the depths of these guys' talents. But for me, on that Thursday, I'll be having my beer and my popcorn. I'll be watching the other teams and see what they do. And by the time the Lions pick, it's going to be about 2.5 hours into the draft. If they name anybody that is a position player that plays tight end, would probably be the only position I'd be disappointed and probably would get viscerally angry at it, because that would indicate that the Eric Ebron pick not only was a shitty pick, a couple years back, but it's still having reverberating effects to this day that the organization's forced to pick tight ends in 2017. So if you can hear it in my voice, if they pick a tight end with that 21st pick, I'll probably be very highly upset and be cursing to the high heavens all next week during the podcast.
I honestly just can't see Bob Quinn taking a tight end. There's so many other spots where we need help, and the only way, and I'd still be upset, but I'd at least I'd have to give it a little bit of chance. I'd like to at least see it, is if somehow the O.J. Howard kid from Alabama, if he drops to 21 and there's absolutely nothing else around us, if they took him there, I would still be pissed. I can't say that I would actually like that pick, but I'd at least, as a football, logically for football, I can understand it, but it would.
So no effing way? No way he takes tight end.
I don't see him taking a tight end.
No fucking way.
There's no effing way I see him taking a tight end. And honestly, it's common sense. There's only going to be, we've all looked at the mock drafts. There's only going to be a certain number of players there. I mean, I don't want them to take certain players. Like, I would love them to take a running back, but the running back that I want is not going to be there. Leonard Fournette is more than likely, he's moved up, and he's going to go probably top 5, if not top 10. And I don't want Dalvin Cook, and I don't want Christian McCaffrey. I think 21 is way too high for those guys, and they're essentially the same running backs that we have on our team right now. We need a cornerback, but I don't think the value you're going to get at 21 is what you want. I would want a Marshawn Lattimore or a Jamal Adams, who's a safety, but those guys are going way high in the top 10. So unless you're talking about the Lions trading up and taking one of those players, I mean, you got to be looking at the defensive end position or the linebacker position. I mean, unless maybe Corey Davis, the wide receiver from Western Michigan, falls to you at 21, you're basically going all in on offense at that point. But at least, again, I can understand that pick. There's only a few picks that I have very little I can't understand why they would make those picks. O.J. Howard, I get it a little bit. I'd still be pissed. But anybody else, like I saw a mock draft that took the Miami kid, the David Njoku, or however you want to say it. That is the wrong pick. Absolutely 100%.
Now, is there any scenario in which you see the Lions trading up to get a talented player? Do you see them drafting at 21, or is there a case where you see a player, maybe a running back, maybe a Fournette that they want to go see, or maybe a Reuben Foster, if he drops maybe in the neighborhood of like 16 to 21, based upon his antics and his the fact of the matter is he didn't do all that well in the pre-draft interviews and all that kind of stuff. If Reuben Foster drops, do you think the Lions trade up, or is there a player that you think they need to be aggressive if he's there in the top 10 to 20 that they could trade up and go get? Is there anybody that you're thinking, hey, go up there and maybe trade an extra second round or third round pick and be aggressive to go get?
I mean, the only guys who I would want them to try and be aggressive for, I mean, they're the top guys in the draft, and you'd probably have to give up way more than they really should be. I think Jamal Adams is really special. Like the safety, I think he's going to be a really, really good safety in the NFL for years to come. I like Malik Hooker from Ohio State.
Huh?
Yeah, but I don't have as much faith in him, and I wouldn't want to trade a ton to move up to try and get that guy.
Hey, what the fuck you talking, man?
Leonard Fournette, I've always said that's the running back that I'd want, and from what I've seen and my opinion is I just don't see the Lions seeing Leonard Fournette as being the guy that they need. I think we would have heard more that the Lions want to go in the direction of a running back, and we would have heard more rumors out of Allen Park that the Lions want to move up and that they want to fix the running back situation that we haven't had since 1999.
Why is Dalvin Cook's stock dropping? All I'm reading across the board is that his stock is dropping and he might end up being in the second or third round.
I feel like that happens with every running back class. It happened last year. You had Ezekiel Elliott, and I don't think he had really much else in the first round. Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey, they're essentially the same thing. They're guys who can run it out of the backfield. I think Dalvin Cook might be a little bit better as a traditional running back, but they're both small frame guys. They both have histories of injury, and I think probably both of them have fumbling issues. That's not what we need, and it's not what most NFL teams are going to spend first round talent on.
And did it make sense to you when Bob Quinn did address the media that he said, look, I'm a guy that's not into too much the prototypical numbers that you have to have. I'm looking for the best available athlete, the best guy that's going to fit. And in terms of his draft philosophy, he said in terms of what he looks for in drafting, he looks for best available at each spot. So he obviously takes into account a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, it's best available player and irregardless of need. And when you look at what the Lions need, there's several areas of need in terms of at tight end, on the offensive line, not as much on the O-line, but you could always get depth at that position.
For sure.
The defensive line, linebackers, safety, secondary. There is no position outside of tight end that I would say you have to avoid drafting. So I would say that,
I'd say quarterback too. I think quarterback first round, unless you're set on not re-upping on Matthew Stafford, and it would be spiraling down It would send this team on a completely different direction.
I don't think so. I would say that this team needs to develop a backup. Jake Rudock's one guy, but then you look at who's behind him. Still, you could get improvement in the area.
Round.
No, not in the first round.
Yeah,
no, obviously.
If you go in the first round, let's say 21, and Trubisky or Deshaun Kaiser or Deshaun Watson, you take them and in the first round, and you haven't re-signed Matthew Stafford.
People be talking.
People are going to be talking. The locker room is going to be divided, and you're essentially, you might as well just fire Jim Caldwell at that point, because you're changing the direction of the franchise.
No doubt about it. So what are your plans in terms of watching the draft? What are you going to do?
I'll probably hang out, with the baby. It's it's a lot different. So watch it at home. I might drink a brew, and I might drink a few more if they end up taking a stupid tight end. But I'm just hoping. The one thing that I want from this draft, I just want a starter from the first round. I don't care if it's a defensive end. Don't care if it's a linebacker. Don't care if it's anybody on the defensive side or on the offensive side, minus a kicker, punter, or tight end and quarterback. Just give it to me.
Now, we'll get back into our draft talk in just a few seconds here, but I definitely would be remiss if I didn't ask you, did you pay attention to the jersey reveal? I had called it the Sucker Summit, in that the Lions, they gathered up all the season ticket holders, invited them into Ford Field, and Rod Wood has done a really good job in terms of marketing the Lions. If you look at the schedule, and we'll talk about that probably after the draft a little bit, if you look at the schedule, I'm going to tease it out and say it might have been favorable when I do the win-loss, and I know we always do that. But Rod Wood, I think, has done a good job in terms of, in the years past, the Lions' schedule was so out of whack in terms of several road games in a row. He's gotten in a situation where they play some home games in the first 5 games, and the schedule is a little bit, more even in terms of home versus road trips. There's not so many extended road trips in this year's version of the schedule, and that's just due to the fact that Rod Wood has talked to the NFL and said, hey, look what you guys have done to us in terms of the schedule in years past. And you go road, home. Give us a fighting chance in these schedules. And so they gather up all the season ticket holders, and then what they do is they drop, a new uniform. They build up a lot of hype. I don't know if you saw the numbers, but in terms of the overall website and the reveal of the jerseys, the average, I believe, that I read was the site gets around 1.5 million views every couple months or so. So it's a popular website, DetroitLions.com. But the website got 2.5 million clicks and views all across that week and day or so in regards to the new jersey. And people were going to the summit, checking everything out, and buying a couple of those jerseys on the spot. And I say to myself, wow, that's pure genius. That's great marketing. You are able to, bring in your fan base and then sell them the stuff that you want. For me, I wasn't as impressed. I say I rated about a B in terms of the new jerseys, but overall, in terms of how the Lions did it, I give them credit. They definitely generated a lot of hype with those jerseys.
For sure. I mean, there's a crap ton of hype, and for really not a whole lot.
Am I being wrong?
It's essentially, it's a font change.
Am I being wrong calling it the Sucker Summit for all those people going there, listening to it, and buying jerseys?
It's
a little harsh.
It's the NFL. People are going to do it regardless. I don't mind them. I'm not a fan of putting the Lions on the one side of the sleeve. I think that's just dumb. We know you're the Lions. I don't mind the WCF on the other side. I think that's probably where it should be. I was kind of getting tired of seeing that big old patch on the front of their jersey. I thought it was unnecessary. But other than that, I'm not a huge fan of the color rush. I might want to see it in game action. The thing that I really liked, and I know some people don't like it, were the away jerseys. I like that they went back to the blue pants, because it kind of reminds me of better times as a Lions fan.
All right. So for you, not a big deal. Are you looking to, like some people said, maybe now get some jerseys that are, older, a little bit of cheaper price? Any jersey that you would buy?
I'd probably buy a Stafford jersey, unless they decide not to re-sign him, because I think if you're going for an NFL jersey, if you're a fan of a team, you really can never go wrong with a quarterback, unless you're a Browns fan, because then you have to get a new jersey every couple weeks in the regular season. So, Stafford jersey, it's going to last for a long time. And that's when you're buying a jersey, you're shelling out that kind of a money, unless you got money to blow. You want to get a jersey that's going to last. I know in the past, I've gotten jerseys for Charles Rogers and Ernie Sims, and both of those jerseys were pretty obsolete pretty quick. So you want to go for that quarterback, and I think Matt Stafford is a very clear big candidate I think I'd go for the throwback jersey. I think it's a clean looking jersey.
So you're on board with it, not too, critical like I was, but I can understand you're a little bit more favorable of the Lions. You're not going to be running out there and getting the jersey right away first day.
I'm not going to shell out the money for that. I have my Lions gear that I have right now, which is just t-shirts. Don't need a jersey, and I'm good to go.
Put your stamp on it. Number 21. I'll start first. I want to know who you think the Lions are going to be drafting and why. For me, I've been looking at several mock drafts. I've pinpointed the biggest area of need as linebacker. And so I'm hoping at 21 on Thursday when the name is called that Roger Goodell goes up there and is like, with the 21st pick, the Detroit Lions select linebacker, Florida, Jarrad Davis. I think that's a solid pick. I think that's the guy that fills the need that you have and that I have, in that he can be a contributing player game one. When the season starts with a training camp and going through a training camp with the Lions and Terrell Austin, I think 21, Jarrad Davis, linebacker, Florida, will be the guy, and I hope that's the selection that is made.
And I'm going to pretty much stay in the same position because with my first mock draft that I did, I said Taco Charlton. But obviously, when you're predicting that early, you never know. And I think that was still a good pick, but I think Charlton has moved up in draft boards. I think he might actually go somewhere in the early teens. And clearly, we're both on the same track that the biggest need on this Lions roster right now is linebacker. They don't have that true big playmaker who can be the anchor of a defense. I'm going to go, I hope he's going to be there. I'm not sure if he will be, but obviously this is my dream scenario that Roger Goodell goes up around, 10, 17, the Lions. I even hope that they don't even have to wait the entire, however much time they get. I think they get like 10 minutes at that point. That it gets to the Lions, they know exactly who they're taking, and they're going to go up there. They're going to say, with the first pick in the 21st overall in the first round, the Detroit Lions select linebacker from Temple, Hassan Reddick.
Hoo-hoo, that's a name. That's a hot name that's going around.
It is. It's a hot name, and that's who I want the Lions to pick. I think anybody else, if there's other names who have already off the board, or if he's off the board, then, everything goes to hell. But I think he's a dynamic player. I think he can play outside linebacker or inside linebacker. We still have Tahir Whitehead on our team. And if he needs a year to develop as a NFL caliber inside linebacker, it gives him a little bit of time. Or best case scenario, he's already ready to go. He can hold down that middle linebacker position for the next 7 to 10 years and be the face of the defense along with Ziggy Ansah and Darius Slay.
Okay, so overall, you and I are on the same page, and I think that Bob Quinn is going to look to address the defense in the first couple rounds. I think there's a lot of depth in this draft, and you can get talented players later on. Do you see a situation in which the Lions take an offensive player in either rounds 1 or 2?
The only way that they're going to take an offensive player is if they're trading up, or if somehow all their options on defense are gone come pick 21. The only way that they would take an offense player, they have to trade up for that. And I think there's a couple scenarios. I mean, the one scenario that I would love to see is you hear Roger Goodell come to the podium and say the Detroit Lions have made a trade with Carolina Panthers for the 8th pick overall, and the Detroit Lions are now going to select running back LSU Leonard Fournette. That's the only player. That's really the only offensive player in this draft that I would love to see them have in the first round, because I think you immediately fix the running game. He's the Ezekiel Elliott of this year. I'm not sure if he's going to be exactly like him, because Elliott obviously has the best offensive line in football, but I think Leonard Fournette, he's on par of those special talents coming out of the draft. You've seen the Todd Gurley's come out. You saw Ezekiel Elliott last year. I think Leonard Fournette has a chance to be one of those special running backs.
All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back, and we'll definitely look at the schedule that was released. And my goodness, the NFL has done such a great job of hyping up the schedule release that I was excited to check it out. And In years past, when the schedule has released, I haven't given the Lions double-digit wins. And maybe, just maybe this year, when we talk about wins and losses, because we did it, I don't know if you did it, but I definitely did it, and I shared it with our followers on our Twitter page. But this year, I think I might have been more favorable than in years past. Stay tuned. We'll go over it next on the Motor City Sports Rant. Doc here, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic. When we started this project in 2013, we just didn't know exactly how to put up a podcast. And so when I looked online, the first thing I looked for in terms of putting a podcast on the internet was an easy way to do it quickly. And utilizing our host site, Podomatic, since 2013 has been super advantageous and really exciting because we've been able to put up at least 500 podcasts. Guy like Jason, Adam, Vito, anybody at all can go online and put up a podcast after we recorded it using Podomatic. I encourage everybody that's starting up a new podcast, definitely go check out Podomatic.com. Within 5 minutes, you can record audio and put it up to the internet. It's that user-friendly. And utilizing Podomatic has been one of the great advantages of our project in that we don't have to spend too much time worrying about how do we get the audio from, our microphones to the internet. And all we got to do is record it, go to Podomatic.com, and upload it in seconds. So Podomatic has been great with us, and I definitely enjoy sitting here talking to you about one of our great sponsors and host sites, Podomatic. So if you're interested in starting a new project and a brand new podcast, you got to check out Podomatic.com.
Polo to the float you already know though. It's Adamville for real, you see a hoe, just take a photo. I'm reppin' as on photo with a fofo on your brodo. Cause that Jodo thought that he could rob a player for some dodo.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Got us bumping in here, Jason. That's pretty good stuff.
Song just got released.
What was that we just listened to?
That was one of the first songs that Big Boy released off his new album, Boomiverse. I'm pumped. I haven't, I would love to hear a new Outkast album, but that's I don't know. I've heard that track, and then he has another one. I think it's something with the mic, and he was featured with Adam Levine. I mean, I don't care about Adam Levine, but he's got some tracks that are bumping, man. Okay, good stuff.
So a lot of people have been talking about the NFL schedule release. A lot of people are saying and debating, do people get invested in it? Do people care about it? Hell, I'll admit, the NFL did a great job in terms of marketing. And once the combine ends, there's a little bit of a lull. The NCAA tournament kind of fills it a little bit. The start to the baseball season kind of fills in that void. But, there's nothing like NFL football. And they did a good job, the NFL did, of marketing the schedule release. They did a good job, too, that day in terms of a little bit of news was leaked in terms of people's schedules all across the league. Some radio stations got some insight, and so it was released all over Twitter a little bit. Maybe about 5 or 6 games were already released, and we had it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast that we knew the second game for the Detroit Lions was going to be on the road on Monday Night Football. But overall, I love it. I love doing the win-loss thing, and I threw up a poll, and 50% of the people said, yeah, it's awesome. Go ahead, do it. And so that day I did it, and the best part was I shared it with my wife, and she comes back and she's like, what? You got the Lions sweeping Green Bay? That's not going to happen. So adjust your attitude, and I'll let it out that my first go-around with the win-loss on that day came up with 11-5.
11-5?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. I had the Lions.
Oh, the cornbread is hot.
Yes, I had the Lions sweeping the division. And the only loss is coming on the road, I believe, to Atlanta. I believe I had them losing to Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and one other loss there that I can't remember off the top of my head. Man. But I had them 11-5 sweeping the division. And so as we go through this, real quickly, you and I will go through the schedule. I'm going to adjust it mildly, but not too much. I'm seeing positive success with that schedule that comes out. And I will modify it, taking into account what my wife said. But I'm seeing good things from the schedule release.
Now, before we go over this, I mean, I didn't follow the schedule release. I didn't care. I knew it was going to come out, and I saw the video that the Lions posted. It was cute with all the little reveals and the little cake cutting. You see what color team they're playing. I got maybe 30 seconds in. I didn't care. I just want to see who they're playing. But I think the biggest things, obviously, that you see is they got a ton of national games. They have 2 Monday night games. They got a Sunday night game, and then you throw in Thanksgiving and a possibility if they're in a race for the NFC North. Week 17, Lions hosting the Packers could be for the NFC North again. We could see 5 or 6 primetime games for the Lions this year. I think that's one thing you see. And then, like you said before the break, is that they've been petitioning that we need to have a better schedule, that we can't have a ton of games on the road. And that was immediately the first thing I saw, is that there was no real prolonged road. You're not on the road for 3 games in a row. That they did a really good job that they pretty much went home away, home away, home away, except for one back-to-back where they're away twice. But that almost helps you because then you get to end your season at home. I mean, I can't be too upset with that schedule. I mean, what do you think?
No, I like the schedule. I like the way it shakes out. I like the fact that you could have a lot of games on television. I think this team is going to be good enough to compete. And when we looked at it, prior to the season, we said, oh, the Lions are going to struggle. But, when you looked at how the Lions played last year, they played a lot of close games, and they were one of the teams that qualified for the playoffs. And if they shore up the running game, if they improve and get somebody that can contribute as a linebacker and improve all across that defense, I believe they're going to have a chance to play a similar style and be in a lot of games. And when we go over this, I really think when you look at it that, the opponents aren't really that great. There's only a handful of opponents that the Lions are going to face where I go, no, they just can't win. Pittsburgh's one of them. Atlanta's one of them. But overall, across the entire schedule, and I can't wait to get into it, I really think that the Lions have a strong opportunity to do some damage, and it's going to be fun.
I love doing this. I love going around. I love hearing the NFL music and predicting what the Lions are going to do. If I had to predict what I'm actually just going to predict, I'm probably going to predict that I'm going to pick the Lions go 9-7 because I'm gonna temper my expectations. The butter isn't as warm and melty as it is for John, but who knows? Maybe I will go crazy and I'll have this team going 14-2.
Okay,
but fire up the music, man.
Here we go. All right, let's start it off, baby. Week 1.
Week 1, Lions get home, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. John, 1:00 game.
Win
for our Detroit Lions, and I gotta go win too. Actually, I mean, the Cardinals I think are tougher than predicted. They had a bad season last year, but they have a really good running back in David Johnson. If Carson Palmer can turn it around, it could be a different scenario, but I'm going to give him a win right now.
Go on the road, Monday Night Football versus the Giants.
Week 2.
I got it as a
Giants.
loss.
You got that as a loss, and I gotta agree. The Giants were, I think they were, after the first round of the playoffs last year, they were pretty much favorited to make a run through the playoffs, and they stumbled, but I think it's going to be a tough game in the Meadowlands.
When I came across week 3, and I said, I'm starting off the year pretty negative, but versus Atlanta, listen, Super Bowl team, I think that's a team that's going to put up a lot of offense. They got Matt Ryan, who I believe is just slightly better than Matthew Stafford, so I got loss, week 3.
Loss. Starting the
1-2 start.
1-2?
Yep.
I really, really want to say win right here, just because it's my Lion fandom, but I'm going with my brain here, and logically, the Falcons should beat us here. And who knows, maybe they will. The Lions will pull it out, and we'll have another whole collapse at the end of the season, but I have to give them a loss here again. So we're even through the first 3 games.
I think next is the first divisional game versus Minnesota.
At Minnesota, week 4.
I got it as a win.
Win against Minnesota.
AP's gone. I think that the Lions have an advantage to play well. They've seen the opponent, so I got it as a win.
It is. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Teddy Bridgewater can do if he comes back this season. But unless he's on a tear, I think it should be a win as well for the Lions. So 2-2 through a quarter of the season for both of us. Heading into the 5th match of the season, we got at home against the Carolina Panthers.
I continue with the winning ways. I got them winning Carolina. I just don't see that Carolina is going to continue to have success. I see that the downfall continues. Hey, Superman no more. The Lions will get to him, and the Lions will have a victory.
I got to go against you here. This is where we differ, because I think Cam Newton is a special player. I think whether it's Jonathan Stewart or if they draft my man Leonard Fournette, if they do draft Leonard Fournette, they could be a very dangerous team. So I'm going to give the Lions the loss here. It sucks at home too, but I don't see them beating the Panthers here.
Now, in one of the most surprising games in 2016, the Lions, when New Orleans was balling and their offense was unbelievable, went to New Orleans and handled their business. I see that continuing. They play New Orleans in 2017, and they walk away in Game 6. Victory, win.
Another win for the Leos. I'm going to go another loss. I think Drew Brees has at least another season in him. I think their offense should be back on track this year with Michael Thomas and what's his name, Brandon Cooks, if they're all healthy. I don't want to predict the win. I don't want to predict the loss, but logically I have to go.
You're wrong.
I hope I am.
Listen, now the next game, they come back to reality. They play a team that's just probably always going to be better than them. The
Sunday
Pittsburgh
Night
Steelers,
Football.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to handle their business.
Football game at home.
Exactly. Pittsburgh will walk away with that victory. If Big Ben is healthy, there's a chance. At that point in the season, Big Ben could be, in the middle of his season and out like he has been in years past. But if Big Ben is healthy and Le'Veon Bell is doing his thing, if he's going to start, ramping up, because by that point he'll be a couple games into his season, knowing that he's usually suspended for the first 4 games. If he gets over his week suspension and he's ready to do his thing, that combination of Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, get the hell out of here. They're not winning that game. Loss
for the Lions. And I see this as a game that is a classic Lions game where they're already down and out. They're 2-4 at this point on my side of the board, and they should have no business being in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's exactly when they come back and throw you for a loop and win a game. So I'm giving the Lions a win Sunday Night Football at home against the Steelers.
Okay, so I had revealed to you that I discussed the schedule with my wife, and she had said, "Are you kidding me? They're going to sweep Green Bay? Is something wrong with you?" And so this is the point where I believe they play Green Bay on the road.
On the road, Monday Night Football, Green Bay Packers.
In my original first thought, quick reaction, I had this as a win. But now I'm going to consider the wife, as a good husband always should do, and I'm going to put this down. I'm going to flip. In this game only, I'm going to call this now, where I had it a win before, I'm calling it a loss.
Loss for the Lions in Lambeau Field.
Green Bay is going to want to avenge that loss that they had, to the Lions, breaking that streak, and they're going to come back and do their business.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to pick the Lions in Lambeau, and I think until they give you a couple years where they actually start winning and dominating the Packers, this is essentially the same Lions team, or is essentially the same Packers team. They still got Jordy Nelson, they still got Aaron Rodgers. So, and now they have Martellus Bennett. So I don't see why the Lions could win this game. Lions are gonna lose.
So 8 games in, I got them 4-4, whereas before I had them 5-3. So 4-4.
4-4. I have them 3-5.
Shame on you. Now
we have a good stretch coming up.
And
look
now
at the schedule.
I smell a T-shirt coming up for this game versus Cleveland in a game that I dubbed the Super Blooper Bowl. Let that wash over you.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard, John.
The Super Blooper Bowl? Are you kidding me? Tell me that's not funny. The Lions' history versus the Cleveland Browns.
Give yourself one of those awful drops that you have.
You don't like Super Blooper Bowl?
What the hell is that about?
Well, the Lions and the Cleveland Indians have a storied history of failure, and they obviously are never going to play each other in the Super Bowl. So this is going to be a game where a lot of people are going to laugh and bring up the histories of the teams, and I'm dubbing it from now, and I did on Twitter. And it's mine, the Super Blooper Bowl. And if you don't like it,
are you going to predict a tie?
No, I'm not predicting a tie. Obviously, in the battle of the teams that suck, I would say historically that the Lions have sucked less than the Cleveland Browns, who are probably on the verge of blowing the number 1 pick with what I'm hearing what they potentially might do. But in essence, this is the game where the Lions show their dominance, and they win the game. Win!
Lions win, and I don't even have to really talk about this one because they're playing the Cleveland Browns.
Super
Lions
Blooper Bowl.
Win. It's not going to be a stupid Super Blooper Bowl. I can't even say it. Say that like 5 times fast.
Super Blooper Bowl. Say it right.
No, it's dumb. I'm not going to say it ever again. Lions beat the Cleveland Browns. Next game,
continuing their dominance in the division, going on the road to Chicago.
The lowly Chicago Bears. Who's going to be their quarterback?
Whoever it is, picks galore. Lions dominate. They've won, I think. The Lions have played pretty well versus the Bears in years past, and in the recent memory too. So give them a W. Win.
And again, unless some quarterback comes out of the woodworks and is just absolutely amazing, which won't happen for the Chicago Bears, this is going to be a win for the Lions. And I got them on a 2-game winning streak.
Coming back home, I believe, versus Minnesota.
Minnesota Thanksgiving game.
Thanksgiving game, I think
Short week.
Yeah, short week. I believe that all the hype will be there. The Lions are going to want to impress, and they're going to do some damage. This is a blowout game in the neighborhood of like 45-21. Lions win, baby. Blowout.
Big prediction. I think this is going to be one of those games where the Lions get up, the Vikings come back, and then the Lions win it in the last couple seconds. Because the Lions love to win those fourth quarter games.
All right.
So I give that a win, though, on Thanksgiving again.
Now, come back to earth. They play Baltimore. Solid team coached by John Harbaugh. I think that Baltimore is going to play a good game. They'll be ready for the Lions. They know Jim Caldwell. They'll have some inside information regarding his offensive schemes, and I believe that the Detroit Lions will lose. Baltimore.
Loss against Baltimore, and I told you they had a good stretch coming up. Baltimore isn't that good. Joe Flacco isn't that great of a quarterback. He has a big arm, but who's he going to throw it to? Brashad Perriman? He has nobody else on his team unless somebody comes out of nowhere. They got nobody. And this is going to be a win for the Lions. They're on a stretch now. 4 games in a row on my book. And for me, they are now 7-5. And for you, they're also 7-5.
Okay.
It's funny how things work out.
Now they go and play Tampa Bay, I believe, on the road.
Second game on the road.
On the road.
The only time that they're on the road for 2 games in a row.
They handle their business. That team's in flux. I don't know what the hell the direction of that organization is. I got that as a win.
Win for John. And I do like Jameis Winston, like the direction that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going. But this is a game that the Lions, after a 4-game winning streak, and they're going to be competing for a wild card, maybe even competing for an NFC North title. They're going to win this game because they need to win this game.
Yes, sir.
So Lions victory. You got a 4:30 game. You get an afternoon game at home against the Chicago Bears.
W. Continue dominance.
Shouldn't even be a conversation.
W.
Win. I've got them on a 6-game winning streak, which is absolutely ridiculous.
That's right.
As a Lions fan.
See, that's why.
Second to last game. Go on the road to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Loss. I think Marvin Lewis is just a coach that is much maligned. I know that he doesn't have much playoff success. He's still the coach, right? He hasn't been fired yet. Amazingly still the coach. And Andy Dalton always seems to do some things, and he'll have an offensive day. And it might be a close game along the way, but I do believe that if it was at home, I might think differently. But on the road, Cincy, a perennial playoff team, I think that I give this one a big, fat loss.
With the way that I had this team rolling, they're on a 6-game winning streak going into to close out this season. They're on their way to an NFC North title. And the only way that they're actually getting this is if they are completely healthy. So I'm going on that assumption. And they're just going to continue their winning ways. They're going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals aren't that great. Andy Dalton is okay.
7-game winning streak. Okay.
It's going to. This is the first one.
Sure.
We'll do another one in the in another couple
after
weeks.
The draft.
And who knows? Maybe I'll have them at like 3-13. But I give them a win. They're in a 7-game winning streak. It's crazy. Last game of the season.
Win.
And this is a game. It's at 1:00 right now. And if I have them at this point. They're 10-5 right now, and more than likely the Green Bay Packers are going to be also right around 10-5 or 9-6, and we're going to be competing for the NFC North title. So I see this is going to be a flex game. It's going to go to Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football.
TJ Lang effect.
You already said it. Regardless, you're giving them the win.
Win.
I'm giving them the win too. At home. For the NFC North title.
There you go.
Lions!
Yes. So that puts me
11-5.
See.
Oh, man.
You're wrong with that extra game. I was, in my initial thinking, 11-5, but with the counsel of the wife, realizing that this is the Detroit Lions, they're not going to end up sweeping the division. But my first impulsive thing that I thought was 11-5, but now on this podcast, on this edition, I got them 10-6. You're wrong. 11 wins, I think, is a little bit much. 10 is the ceiling, and that's what I will stick with. I think I will stick with that across the board, and I will happily defend that. 10-6, baby. Division champs. Playoffs.
Oh, man. The cornbread is super hot right now for me, and the fever is way too much. I didn't think I'd predict 11-5. I really thought I had it under control. I thought I was going to get to 9-7. Maybe 10. I think 10-6 probably would have been a better option for me, but I got on that 8-game win streak. Anything's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible. And honestly, for that to be possible, everything would have to go right. And I say that every year that, anything is possible for the Lions. Just everything just has to go right. No injuries. And that it just doesn't work in the NFL. So more than likely at some point, Stafford will get dinged up or Golden Tate will miss a game here and there. Whoever our running back will be out and we'll be forced to deal with Zach Zenner and whatever other scrub we're going to get off the street. And we're going to lose a stupid game to, Baltimore on the road or Tampa Bay on the road. Maybe those back-to-back road games, we'll lose both of those games. And then we'll just spiral on out from there. And maybe we'll back into the playoffs. But I don't know. Just hopes are so high. The season hasn't even started. We're 0-0 at this point. We don't even know who we're getting in the draft. But, Thursday comes and they draft the tight end from Miami. This is going to be flipped to 5-11.
Okay, here we go, baby. Great podcast. I know we didn't get too much into the Tigers, but let's leave on a high note. I think we both have the Lions having a winning record. We're feeling good about the draft. Next week when we come in and talk about our review of the Lions draft is going to be favorable all across the board. Look for Jason's 7-round mock drafts exclusively regarding who the Lions will draft on our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Thanks to everybody that's been downloading. I know you've been loving our draft coverage, our website, our Twitter page. The support has been felt, and we get the message. That's why we do this podcast each and every day, and new shows are coming. And we're continuing to build our relationship with our host site, Podomatic, where we can do some great things. And hey, if Jason's okay, if he can avoid all the bad traffic and all the health problems that he's got, hey, we'll keep doing this podcast, baby.
Well, for John Macaroon, I didn't actually introduce myself. I am Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. You can follow me on Instagram if you want at Jarvie the King too. But who knows? You'll just see pictures of my baby. But until next week in the Lions draft, forward down the field. Shut up, John. You're a dick. Later. Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.